Welcome, everybody. You are listening to In the Company of Charity podcast, a podcast by the Daughters of Charity. My name is Sister Liz Schoberg, and usually I am joined by my friend, Sister Elizabeth, but we have an additional guest. We're doing our interview all together today. So I'm joined by my co-host, Sister Elizabeth. Sister, how are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm doing very well, and I'm really excited about our interview today. We are in the company of Sister Ann Mary Doughtery from who's coming to us from Rome today, so which is very exciting because we get all oogly about things European and about Rome and things like that. And she's been there for a long time, probably not quite as exciting to her, but she's currently working as the secretary at the Vincentian Curia, and she'll tell us all about what that exactly means. Basically, she's working with the Congregation of the Mission, but she'll tell us more about that. So we just want to welcome Sister Ann Mary this morning and this evening for you to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
We're so excited to have you because, you know, we don't get to hear a lot about what's going on the general level and internationally, but I think a great place to start is to just maybe give us a little Cliff Notes version of, you know, your early life as a daughter, and when was that sort of transition into these additional responsibilities that you now have?
Okay. I entered the community in Emmitsburg in 1965. I was a postulant, and I'm band of 66. So I did my formation there, and I stayed on in the junior A for 3 years until I finished college. And then I went up north. My first assignment was in Utica, New York.
Yay, Utica. Very nice.
I'm trained as a high school math teacher, and I taught at Utica Catholic Academy for 5 years. And then I was missioned to Seton High School in Endicott, New York. I was there 1 year when the school merged with Catholic Central in Binghamton, and we moved over to that campus. And I was there for 3 years when I volunteered for the foreign missions. Mm-hmm. And so I went to Paris, and I learned some French, and I was assigned to Cameroon. I was there for about 2.5 years, and when I discovered that was not my vocation, and I came back to the States, and then I was assigned to St. Mark's High School in Wilmington, Delaware. I was there for teaching all the time, teaching high school math. Mm-hmm. And I was there for 3 years when Sister Mary Rose McGady, who was the visitatrix at the time, asked me to go to Paris to serve in the General Secretariat of our mother house. She had some other people in mind, but one of them said, it's easier to teach someone who knows French how to type than to teach someone who knows how to type French. So she turned me down. So that's where I ended up in Paris, and I was there for a little over 6.5 years. And I was supposed to stay for another 3 because in the meantime, Sister Margaret John Kelly became the visitatrix, and she asked if I was willing to stay longer. And I said, sure, I really liked being at the mother house. And, but Father Maloney had another idea. Oh. He had become the superior general a little less than a year earlier, and he was looking for new secretaries because the 3 that he had were quite elderly. You might not have known them, but it was Sister Mary Ellen Sheldon and Sister Eleanor McNabb, who were the stalwarts from Emmitsburg.
Yes, and I knew them very well.
One had been visitatrix, and the other one had been her provincial secretary. And then there was a Spanish sister too. So he was looking for someone different, and the lot fell on me. Wow. Sister Juana was not happy. She was the Mother General at the time, and she came to me and she said, "He's a robber." Now she spoke in English. I don't know that she knew the difference between a thief and a robber, but she used robber. And so that's how I got to Rome for the first time. I went. He asked me 2 days after the renovation. So like you just vowed obedience to the superior general foundation of the mission, and doesn't give you much choice but to say yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I cried through the whole thing, and he said, and he didn't blink an eye. He just said, well, I hope your experience in Rome is just as good as the one you had here.
Oh man.
Wow.
And the day I left there, I went to say goodbye to Sister Juana, and she had 50 sisters from Spain in her office. They had brought a group of elderly sisters to the mother house. And I was crying. And she turns to them and says to them, you know why she's crying? She's crying because she's leaving here, and she's just so happy here. So it was, but then once I got to, well, I said to Father Maloney, I guess I have to learn Italian. He said, I'd rather you learn how to drive. I did know how to drive, but.
Are they crazy drivers or?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And they've gotten worse. So I don't drive here anymore. I take public transportation. I drove the first 14 years I was here, but when I came back, no. So when I went, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, you know, when you were at the mother house those years, what was your sense of the grand community, the internationality of the Daughters of Charity? Did you miss teaching, or it was like, this is where I am right now and I'm going to be fully invested here?
Oh, no, I was fine with it. I have a gift of organization. And so a secretarial work is fine with me. And I miss the kids especially a little bit, but I got into what I was doing and had no problem with it. And it was wonderful seeing, getting to know sisters from all over the world. And I actually helped to translate, or interpret rather, about 13 Vincentian sessions. So, you know, I was constantly being fed the spirituality of St. Vincent, history of the company, etc.
Wow, that's beautiful. You know, it sounds like the early missionary kind of calling was maybe not to the foreign missions in the sense of the Cameroon experience, but the missionary spirit is definitely there, and being able to be in a space that's not necessarily your own, not your own country, and yet to use the skills you have. I don't have organization skills, so I'm always impressed by people who do.
Like, you go do the organization, we'll be over here.
Yeah, well, I'm going to give a shout out to Sister Cheryl Hillig, who I know, you know, she's very organized, and I was in a committee meeting with her, and I used to sit beside her just because she was organized. I always knew she'd have all the paperwork, so I really appreciate people who have that kind of organization. That's great.
Back to so what was that like, going from Paris to Rome? What was that adjustment?
That was probably initially a little bit harder because I didn't know Italian. When I went to Paris, I knew French from having been in the Cameroon. So I didn't have to learn that. Although I knew the secretarial work, so I just had to pick that up. But actually, most of my work was in English with Father Maloney, and the other secretaries also spoke English that were in the office with me. So it wasn't too bad. The biggest thing probably was getting used to traveling, driving back and forth. If we went into work on a Saturday in August, we could make it there in, like, I think we made it once in 9 minutes. It's about 5 miles away. But coming home at just before Christmas, it would take an hour. The traffic would be just so bad.
Goodness, wow.
That's crazy.
So, and, you know, it's a cultural difference, you know, living with sisters. In Paris, you lived with many more sisters of all different nationalities. Whereas this time it was mostly a group of Italians and then a few foreigners. So
you're one of those foreigners.
One of those foreigners, yes. When we first got there, there were just two of us. There was a Spanish sister who had spent 24 years in London, so she knew English. She worked in the secretariat with me, so we drove back and forth each day.
Tell us about working with Father Maloney and Father Greg. What
night and day.
Night and day. Okay.
Tell us more.
Father Maloney was just like more like I am. He's very, very organized. He knew exactly what he wanted. He dictated everything. He dictated his letters. He dictated talks that he was writing, or anything that he was writing, he dictated. And so I used a dictaphone, and I typed what he was saying, and he was so organized that he would say semicolon, exclamation point, new paragraph, and so it was just really easy to work with. And like I said, he knew what he wanted. One time he called me up to his office and he said, "Now I think we should." I said, "No, I don't think we should." I said, "I've got a pile of work on my desk and you're leaving town." He laughed, and then he told me what we should do. Because when he made up his mind about something, that's what we're going to do. Now, Father Greg was a whole nother story. He would come in. He got the dictaphone and he said, "Oh, how does this work?" So I showed him how it worked. Well, he thought that was the wonderful thing. And he would dictate, but he just rambled. And he'd repeat and go on, and especially he used to dictate at midnights. So it just went on. And so I finally learned that I just had to restructure everything after I cut out everything that was repetitious. With Father Maloney, I just did exactly what he said, but not with Father Greg. It had to be rewritten. I hope he won't mind that I'm telling tales on him.
He was on the podcast last year. He go back and listen to everybody who's listening right now. Go listen to Father Greg. It was a really fun episode.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. He was just totally, and he was always on the road. He did much more traveling than Father Maloney did. So they were very, very, very different.
Well, and we don't often have, not all the daughters live near where our Vincentian priests and brothers are. And so tell us about that connection and learning about them and feeling that closeness to our brother community.
That is something I appreciated when I went to Rome, because like you just said, I was up in Utica and we didn't have any Vincentians. That we had what they call the Polish Vincentians. I don't even know if they're still up there.
They're not.
We didn't have any. They're not. No. We didn't have any contact with them. So the only Vincentians we saw was the guy that came once every 3 months or so to give a conference on a weekend. So I didn't know too many Vincentians except for that person and making retreats. So it was very nice to get to know so many different Vincentians from all over the world, and to see and to learn about their ministries, as well as what I had learned about the daughters in Paris and in the States, of course.
And so you had worked with one superior general, then the next superior general, and then they sent you home. So
right. They didn't send me home. Sister Evelyn did.
That's
I had been there 14 years, and she said that was long enough. And first she said it, and I knew this when I met with her, I guess when Greg was elected. I was at that point, I was ready to say that I would go. I was kind of feeling burned out. And so they all told me that the next superior general after Father Maloney was going to be from Latin America. So I said, well, I said to myself, I'm going to say to him, I'll stay with you until you find somebody in your own language. And then, I'll go back to the States. So then they elected a superior general from Latin America who had been born in Baltimore, Father Greg. And I walked with him up to the papal audience we had, and he said to me, no, the first thing he said to me when I went to greet him after his election was, "Are you my secretary now?"
Oh,
So, because I did know him slightly because he'd been to Rome for visitors meetings and stuff like that. So I had met him and I had some dealings with him. So he said, "Are you my secretary now?" I said, "Yeah, well, I guess." But, so then when Sister Evelyn came to meet him and I met with her, and she said to me, "Well, we'll say 3 years." And I knew that meant 3 years and you're out of here.
mm.
And so after 3 years, she came back, less than 3 years, and she said, "I think it's time." And I said to her, the reading today was from, now I'm going to forget what it was. I think it's the reading that we had this morning at Mass from Isaiah. "Who shall I send? Send me." And I had used that for my vow Mass. And I said, "Whatever you say." And so I said to Father Greg, his council wanted me to stay until the end of his first term. And I said, "Well, you'll have to pull rank on her." And he says, "I won't do that." I said that I'm leaving. And so I did, not immediately, but like within the year. I think that was probably in February or something. And I left in early December once somebody came to replace me.
And wow, and that's when you went to Emmitsburg?
That's when I went to Emmitsburg. Now, Sister Mary Frances Martin was the visitatrix in Albany, and she wrote to me. And so I wrote back and I told her, "I'm not a self-starter. You give me something to do, I'll do it, and then I'll see things that can get me done so I can go on once I get started. But don't tell me to go out and find a job or to investigate some possibilities. That's not my talent." And so, and then I wrote to her, so I told her that, and I told her, I said, "I'm trained as a math teacher, but I've been away for 14 years. I forget how old I was going to be, but I said, I understand the students have changed, so maybe it wouldn't be good to go back into the classroom after all these years, but whatever, and maybe I could do after school teaching or something like that, tutoring." I said, but I'd be happy to go back to help Sister Marie Poole finish the translation project. And she wrote back and said, "She'll think she died and went to heaven."
Oh,
And so that's how I got to Emmitsburg to help finish the translation.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure we know that she's still living, but she probably did feel like she was in heaven having you there, because the translation of Vincent's work was huge. It's a huge project.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
But by the time I got there, she was almost finished. She had when I arrived, she had sent the 11th volume to the printer. So we worked on 12 together, and then we worked on the index together.
I just can't imagine a purgatory worse than working on an index, but I feel so glad that you and Sister Marie Poole were working on that.
Maureen Houlihan used to come by and say, "You should put a mistake somewhere in the middle of it, so people will know you will know if people actually read it." And Maureen said, "Don't worry, there's enough mistakes going to be in it anyhow. We don't have to worry about adding them."
That's
Do
great.
People email you now and again and say like, "Oh, I saw a typo on page 450.
No, but I did.
That good?
I did. I'm presently proofreading Father Maloney's new book on brothers in the Congregation of the Mission, and so I wrote to him about a few things, and I said to him, "You didn't use the text exactly as it is in the official English translation." He wrote back and said, "I laughed. I chuckled at that because only you and Father and Charlie Plock have noticed that I have changed the translation."
can you just do that? Can you just change a translation? That's,
Well,
I don't know, there's some kind of sin in that.
no, I was asking if I could put at least CF and in the citation so that see this, so that they know it's not exact. Now, what he changed it, Sister Marie used contractions, especially in the conferences, and he didn't agree with that. And I probably didn't either, but she explained to me she did it so it sounded more like the spoken word, especially for the conferences. And there were other phrases, he told me about the other phrases in French. I don't know whether she used them deliberately or if they had been done in volume 1 before she was part of the whole project or had a say in it. And so she felt she had to continue the format that was used from the very beginning in all the letters and everything. So that it was a whole piece.
So translation is very, very nitpicky. It doesn't, I don't mean it in the negative sense, but you really do have to keep it continuous. It needs to look the same throughout. And as I said, I mean, 14 volumes of St. Vincent's writings and keeping it all in the same tone is quite a talent for sure.
Yeah, it had to be at least, now, like we said, some other translators have used different people, but the letters have to be done by one person or the same group of people. The conferences to the daughters and the priests could be slightly different because they're different than the letters. But she really did basically the whole 14 volumes. The first volume, Sister Jacqueline Kyler did, but she worked with her too. So
yeah, well, we're gonna have to get Sister Marie Poole on here too sometime for a podcast. To see what that was.
I think that would be a great idea. Yeah. She had a dictionary, 17th century French dictionary, to help understand what a word meant in the 17th century that might not have that same meaning today in French, so that you would get the right word in English.
That is really amazing to me.
Yeah. So you were in Emmitsburg with all this adventure of translating, using, again, your gifts as an organizer and your gift of language. And then, but you're not in Emmitsburg today. So is this where the shift happened? What happened? Ever the missionary, moving, coming and going. Where?
We finished the project. She also had me do all of the book, packing the books and sending them out and billing the people because she's no good with numbers. But the project came to an end, and Father Greg wanted me to come back. So after Sister Kathleen became Superioress General, he asked her if I could come back to finish up his term and to do a transition to the next person. And so that's how I ended up back. And Sister Louise Gallagher was, by that time we were one province. 4 provinces had merged. And she said, we'll say 6 months, but she didn't specify what she meant by 6 months and never put it in writing. So here I am still transitioning 6 years later, 6.5 years later.
I love that. I mean, any daughter of charity listening now knows well, I didn't know what she meant by 6 months, right? Because 6 months doesn't necessarily mean 6 months.
Yeah, I didn't know if she meant 6 months after Greg finished or 6 months after I got there, or
6 months after the next guy gets done. Who knows what 6 months means?
And for the people listening who are not in this world, I think it's a really interesting case study of the vow of obedience, because here you are talking about where and I said this and I felt this and one superior, I think you mentioned that should Father Greg like trump Sister Evelyn or something at one point. I mean, it's very interesting because I'm sure in some communities it's like, well, whatever the mother says is going to happen. And, we're kind of in this, like, you have to wrestle with it and you have to say where you are about certain things, and your yes is this, but letting them know, how you're feeling about it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also, I've been really, as you've been speaking, reflecting on the need in obedience for our own self-awareness, who we are, what we're good at, what we're not good at, as we go on mission and we try different things, that we're able to say, this is not the place to send me. This would not, this would not be a good fit. But then trusting that that's going to be heard and respected,
Right.
but still open to say, I'll go where I'm asked to go, and so there's that sense of input, but also I think an honest self-awareness is really important. It's really important. Yeah, so I really appreciate that part of your story as well.
I spoke to Sister Kathleen. I went to France in 2018 for a retreat, and I asked to meet with her, and she told me that she wanted me to stay through Father Tomasz's first term and beyond if I could. So okay. I'm definitely through his first term, because he finishes in June, July. If he, gets reelected, we shall see. But so that's where I am right now. But the Secretary General, whom I work with more closely probably than Father Tomasz, is so afraid I'm going to leave. And he kept saying, I said, well, look, I said, I'm going to be 75. I don't know how much longer I can step up onto those buses.
Wow.
He said, oh, that's right, you take public transportation.
Now, I want to make sure we touch on a little bit about you being in Rome and the greater church and all of that. So is there any stories you want to share, any insider info about Pope Francis, or being at some of the audiences or anything like that?
I haven't been at any of the audiences recently. I think I went to one in 2014, but when I was back in Emmitsburg, and I came for a session in Paris, and then I wanted to come to Rome because I didn't know I was going to come back again. and so Sister Grace Marie Dunn was with me, and so we went to an audience. But we asked actually if we could get tickets for the Papal Mass, the one he has in St. Martha's, and we didn't. However, when I turned 50 years vocation, the sisters said to me, you can ask to go to the Papal Mass for that. So I wrote to the Holy Father, and I said, I'm going to be 50 years vocation, and I would be delighted to be able to come to one of the morning masses at St. Martha's. People frequently ask me if I live at St. Martha's, which I do not, in the Vatican. So I said so I wrote, and I said, it can be any time. I said, my vocation date is the 17th of March, but I live here in Rome. So I got an invitation for the 21st of April of that year. And I went to the Papal Mass in the morning. And then after the Mass, he greets everybody individually. So I got to meet him at that point. And then another time, a couple of years ago, Father Tomasz had this initiative to send 1% of the congregation of the mission to the Missions Agentes for this year. It was a special missionary year. And so he asked for an audience with the conference of the congregation, so that of the Curia rather. So they would go and present this to the Holy Father. And he invited us, myself and the sisters from St. Martha's, to join them afterwards. So they first met with them, and then we went into to meet them too. So that's the second time I met him up close and personal.
Are there still how many sisters are still over there at the Vatican working there?
At St. Martha's, I think there's 5 now. At that time, there were 4. No, at that time, there might have been 5 because there were 2 Indian sisters. I guess there were 5 at that time and 3 Italians. And then the 2 Indians were replaced by 1. But now they have a sister from Eritrea there. So I think there's 5 sisters there that live in St. Martha's and work there.
So it is
But
an international, it's an international community, right? There's sisters from.
Yes. Yeah, there's 3 Italians, 1 Indian, and one from Eritrea. And our house is international too, Casa Maria Immaculata. And there are, right now, there's 3 Italians, 1 from Panama, 1 from India, and myself. So.
Yeah, you didn't escape
Did
the
I
missions.
Not Panama, 1 from Paraguay, not Panama, Paraguay.
Paraguay. Yeah. So you didn't escape the missions. It's there. It's all over you.
No.
It wasn't just that one mission. It was just to be part of the whole international community.
Yeah.
That's great.
But I say, if I had not volunteered for the foreign missions, I would never have ended up here. I would still be in the high school someplace probably.
Yeah.
That's really
teaching math or substituting or something.
Yeah. God is good.
Sometimes
it's
you have
interesting.
You go and you realize it's not the thing, but then yet it's such an integral part of your story.
Yes.
Now, when will you come back and visit us in the US?
I come, according to the provincial plan, I can come once for a month, once every 2 years, or 2 months every 3 years. And I do the 1 month every 2 years. So I was just back in the States in last August, the beginning of September. So it'll be 2023, unless I quit before then.
Well, that will be another story to tell for sure.
We'll have to do an episode with you.
Where
in the world is Sister Ann Mary? That will be.
Sister Kathleen told me that, like I said, she wanted me to stay through his first term and beyond if I could. I don't know how Sister Francoise feels about that. But Sister Kathleen did say, but if at any time, you feel that it's time to go, just, say so. So I would do that with Sister Francoise anyhow, but I don't know if she has other thoughts.
Just know there's currently an open bed in Utica, so you could pull it all the way back around. just putting that little bug out there, just putting it out there.
Sister Louise Gallagher keeps inviting me to Niagara Falls.
Oh,
now come on! You gotta expand your horizons to Texas.
You need to come back where you started. You need to come full circle. Then you can branch out. Texas is very, very hot. I don't know. People don't like that.
Yeah, it's definitely different than where you.
Yes. Well, I live in Rome, and that's very, very hot too.
Yeah, that's why you need to come back up into the Arctic zone. That's what you're gonna feel like you've come home.
Well, what a gift. I mean, I just want to say not only thank you for your time today, but also thank you for all of the work that you have done in your life as a daughter of charity and translations and what you're doing now. I mean, these are the kinds of things that live on for generations, and we are the beneficiaries of these sisters like yourself behind the scenes, doing the hard work of really passing on the charism. And so it's a gift, and so thank you for that, and thank you for sharing all of your wisdom with us today and your stories and all your laughter. It's been really fun.
You're most welcome. It's great being with you all. And I listen to the podcast not regularly, but occasionally.
Yes.
Yes, great.
And sometimes I go back and listen to 3 or 4 in a row, and
there you
probably
go.
not 3 or 4. It's a little long, but when I made a private retreat here during the first COVID lockdown, I listened to quite a few of them at that time.
Oh, that's
Well,
so wonderful to
thanks.
hear.
We'd like
Everyone
to hear
else
that.
listening, know that we're being heard all over the world. That's so exciting. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.